what job search strategy should be used for a program manager position?
That's also a great question. So sometimes this can be a little bit tricky because roles that utilize program management skills don't always list themselves under the title of program manager. Sometimes you might see the title product manager, you might see the title project manager, and then you might find roles that have a completely different title, but really benefit from someone having program management skills. So keywords that I look for when I'm, reviewing potential opportunities or reviewing, potential new roles are things like stakeholder management. The word cross-functional can be very key. Anything that implies some degree of strategy, and then also perhaps the word execution. So really boiling down to those keywords that describe a program manager role or experience and seeing where those might bubble up. I think for folks who are interested in a program management career path, my number one piece of advice is to really reflect on what aspect of a program manager role really excites you. Because you can spend time applying to program manager roles, but if you really know what excites you about it, then you can also spend time applying to roles in a broader variety that might leverage the same skills, might leverage the same things. So let's say that you're super passionate about solving a particular type of business problem, and in order to do so, you need to take a program management approach or use program management skills. You can look for roles within that job function or search for roles based on that job problem. If you're more inclined to take on any program management role because you just love flexing the skill set and you're sort of business problem agnostic, then maybe looking for the title of program manager and starting from there and filtering out which opportunities sound the most exciting is the best way to go. If it's a particular skill set of a program management role that you find really attractive, then searching with that as your primary keyword or using that as your starting point might not be a bad idea. So I think some of it just comes down to we can control and influence ourselves more than anything else. And if we spend that time self-reflecting and really understanding what gets us excited, what gets us passionate about this type of career when we discuss it, it can be a little bit easier to find those types of roles. I will say that a technique that I have found to be very useful is doing a lot of day in the life chats or coffee chats with people who are in roles that I think I might be interested in. So usually most people are more than willing to share more about their experience and how they got there. And even just asking for, a 15, 20, 30-minute conversation to say, would you mind walking me through what the day-to-day of your job looks like and the types of skills you use? One, you can suss out if that's truly an opportunity type that you'd be interested in. And two, you can start hearing the industry jargon, so to speak, used in context of their business problem, of their work. And that can help you reframe your own experiences to better understand what job opportunities you should go for, and should you make it to an interview stage, how to frame your experiences to really relay to that hiring team that you are the best one for the role.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And so what do you think, what educational qualification is required for a program manager?
Yeah, it can really range. So for myself, I currently have a bachelor's degree in sociology. I think sometimes people joke that sociology is not necessarily a profitable major, but for me, I found it to be very useful because sociology encourages you to practice critical thinking. It also encourages you to really assess sort of the systems and structures at play within a particular societal problem. And for me, that was really helpful in program management because, again, I'm not just thinking about Band-Aid solutions and addressing a very, very specific problem. I want to solve for that problem, but I want to get into the root of the issue and see if we can solve for the problem at scale or prevent it entirely. I'm also currently in grad school part-time, pursuing my master's in organizational leadership and learning. And this master's specifically is focused on how do we design effective organizations? How do we groom leaders who will be effective within the modern industries and the modern world? and how do we create organization-wide learning. And part of that is because what fascinates me are things like change management, learning and enablement, and really the how you go about getting folks to adopt a new process or new asset or new program. That being said, let's say that you're interested in program management work that is a little bit more technical. Maybe having some sort of educational experience that prepares you for that is not a bad idea. I think what's great about program management is if you were to get a room full of program managers, I would imagine there wouldn't be two of them who had the same life story or had the same career path to get them to the role they're currently in. And I think it really speaks to the diversity of, this type of role and this type of career and the different types of things you can do with it. So some of it really comes down to, again, that self-reflection piece of understanding where your strengths are, where your passions are, where your opportunities for growth are, and what you'd like to actually grow in, and applying that to the different opportunities that you're taking on.
Thank you so much, Anis, for the answers. So do you think any particular certifications that can help an applicant to break into a program manager job?
Yeah, so for me, I found that getting my Scrum certification, so learning, agile techniques was really helpful. It didn't, make or break whether I got a role, but it's something that gave me another framework I could apply to my program management approach. It gave me more information about what folks might be looking for in a candidate or what might be top of mind for a hiring team. So I found that to be quite useful. There are other product management programs and program management certificates that you can study. I've actually found it more useful for folks who are joining my team for headcount we've opened up, or folks that I've coached in the past to pivot into program management roles. I found it more useful for them to spend their time focusing on how do I frame my experience thus far within the lens of program management. So for example, I used to be in recruiting here, which is a very different career, and sometimes viewed very differently from other pockets of the business. And when I was interviewing for my current job as a global program manager, I really had to frame my recruiting experience within the lens of program management. So to my recruiting managers, I might say I made, 15 hires, and this was the experience that was reported via surveys, and, here are all these metrics you care about. For program management, I talked about how I hired at scale, how I navigated through different processes, how I facilitated stakeholder alignment on a candidate or candidates to make sure that everyone felt comfortable moving forward and felt they had enough information to make a hire or no hire decision. So I think, you can get certificates, you can always seek out additional learning opportunities, and I would encourage you to do so if you identify a gap in your skill set, or if you're curious about learning more, or if, that's a way in which you can kind of field if this is a good career progression for you or not, based on what you'd like to do with your career. But I would also encourage you to really take that time to think through your experiences thus far and apply that program management lens and frame to them.
Great. Thank you so much. So, Anis, apart from this as well, what do you think are the 3 tips to make your resume stand out for this position?
Yeah, I think a certain degree of tenacity. So you have to be a little bit stubborn to be a program manager, just because typically you're operating in a great deal of ambiguity, and you usually don't face the same problem twice. So there are best practices you can take from business problem to business problem, but you need to have a degree of perseverance. Just because you're stepping into something that is likely new to you, that is likely new to your stakeholders, it could be a novel business problem that no one's solved before in this particular context, and you need to be that steady, calm, driving, facilitating force. And if you're unsure of yourself, everyone else is going to feel it around you. So I think having a little bit of tenacity is very important. I think really having a good degree of emotional intelligence. So really being able to read and understand and empathize with your stakeholders can be a very powerful tool. So for example, if you are expected to launch something halfway through the year and you are working with folks who are in a sales organization, they might be concerned about meeting their quotas to ensure that they get paid. And that, might mean things for their financial security if they have dependents or a family, or even if it's just they're responsible for themselves. Having that emotional intelligence to really understand and analyze the people you're working with can help you develop more thoughtful approaches to partnership. So maybe that means baking in, additional leeway time at the start and end of each stage of your project plan to ensure that there's wiggle room should something be missed because, there's a big conference coming up or a big customer deal or a big revenue date. It could mean making sure that when you lead a meeting, you are providing an agenda, and when you're facilitating it, you are keeping yourself steady and calm and sure, so that way other stakeholders also feel steady, calm, and sure. And then I would say, the third piece is kind of thinking at scale. So in an ideal world, the best program managers, probably their stakeholders don't know how much work they're putting in because, they have made things so steady and so seamless, and they have found ways to kind of remove themselves from the business problem by creating a process or creating an asset that really solves the core issue that they can then move on from. So really thinking in that strategic lens of, it can be very easy, especially in the tech industry, to get caught up in this short-sighted mindset of, our house is on fire, we just need to put it out now, we'll deal with the rest later. And it's really having the balance of facilitating that, approach to arising business problems, and then also keeping that midterm, long-term in mind and implementing those strategies as well.